Hey, John Mayfield, the Real Estate Tech Guy. Thank you so much for joining. We're doing some math problems. On the previous example, we talked about prepaid interest. And remember, the buyer on the day of closing pays prepaid interest. Well, today we're going to flip that and have the seller pay some interest through the day of closing. We call that accrued interest. And how do we figure accrued interest? Well, let's go to the board and do this math problem for you. So, gonna just highlight a couple of things about this question. We can see that a buyer is assuming a seller's loan and the day of settlement is August 19th. That's a crucial date we need to know. This is other important information in the problem. The interest rate, 4.5%. The seller made their last payment on August 1st, and we know what the loan balance is, don't we? $36,962.50. Now, this is one of the areas that could trip up some people. It says using a calendar year. Anytime you see the word calendar year, you want to use 365 days. Now, I am under the impression that on the exam they will tell you how many days to use with your calculation. If they were to just say calendar year, you want to use 365 days, okay? Now, they want us to calculate what is the interest. See this? What is the interest the seller must pay through the day of closing, and the closing is the 19th. Now, what I want you to remember is this. Very important. Here's the first of the month. We go all the way through 30 days. When the seller or you make your payment on the first, you are actually paying what we call in arrears. That's why when we had the previous problem that I just did before this one, we had this, the buyer was closing on the 10th, and they wanted to know what was the prepaid interest. Well, prepaid is going to go forward, but accrued interest goes backwards, okay? So don't forget that. Well, in this case, the closing is on the 19th. So I'm going to come over here and put the 19th. And so in this example, we have to figure out what are the 19 days of interest that the seller owes, okay? And remember, the seller's paying the day of closing as well. We're closing on the 19th. They're paying that. So they're going to, in other words, on the closing statement, they're going to have the seller's loan balance, the payoff for the loan balance, plus accrued interest. And normally they will just include that in one lump sum, but we're just going to break it out so you can see how this works. Now, to figure this, we're just really doing some T problems here. I'm going to move this over here and kind of make it a little bit bigger. So we're just doing a couple of T problems. And the first T problem, remember, you always want to put your math symbols on your T. We have total at the bottom, part at the top, and the rate or percentage. We are always going to have two of the numbers that we need. We're always solving for a third number, and whichever two you have, if you have one on top and one on bottom, your math tells you to do whichever. And in that case, if we had one on top and one on bottom, our math tells us to divide here. But if we have both bottom numbers, our math symbol tells us to multiply. So total is always bigger than part, right? In this case, we really just have the two numbers we need, the 36,000. So I'm going to plug this in right here, 962.50. That's the current loan balance. That was the balance after they made the August 1st payment. And we also know the interest rate is 4.5%. That's going to come over here on the rate. And John says what? I tell you to always move that decimal over 2 places. There are people freaking out right now because they're like, if I move that over 2 places, John, there's no number there. Well, you just put a 0 there. Okay, so no need to worry. 0.045 just makes it easier for your math. And since we have the bottom 2 numbers, what does our math symbol tell us to do? It tells us to multiply. So when I take 36,962.50, which is the loan balance, and I multiply it times 0.045, I get 1,663.31, which is, in this example, the annual interest. And so we're on a calendar year, right, which I said is 365 days. So all we need to do is divide that by 365 days to get the daily interest, which is $4.56. And then we closed on the 19th, so this is daily interest. So now we're going to multiply that times 19, and that is $86.58. I think that's the right answer. $86.58. And that is the correct answer. How about that? Okay. So it's accrued interest for the seller. That's how we work it. I hope that helped you out. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Love to have you subscribe. I'd like to grow that subscribership, so would appreciate that. And be sure and check out Global Real Estate School 5-star reviews. We had the highest pass rate right now as of this date of the recording. I double checked my numbers. I think I'm correct, and AI says I'm correct. So, I just went through it with the Missouri Real Estate Commission Education Director, and we looked at April because I wanted to make sure I was using the right column, and sure enough, I had an 80% first-time pass rate last month. 80%. Now, go to my website, Global Real Estate School, and you can see all of the numbers. It's all laid out there for you. But all of those things you just saw pop up on the screen that are there right now, they're included for Global Real Estate School students. So I'd love to have you as a student, and I'd be honored to have you. When you call me, I pick up the phone and answer. I had a lady call me this morning, and she said, "You really do pick up the phone and answer." And I said, "Yeah, that's true." And today's my birthday, too. So I think you could do a super bonus on my YouTube channel and give me money for my birthday. But you might be saying, "John, it's July 13th when I'm watching this, or it's Christmas or Thanksgiving." Hey, you can still do the super bonus, and that's always cool. I have had people actually pay me on the super bonus. I'm not asking you to do that. It would be nice, but no, I'm teasing. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day. It is my birthday, and I'm still doing YouTube videos for you because I want you to pass the test, but I want you to be a great real estate agent as well. Hey, thanks again for watching. As always, go out and make it a great day.